You're listening to High Frequency Healing on the Superpower Up podcast, the show that explores the awakening of superpowers through higher dimensional healing.
Hello, this is AngelaMaría, one of the Superpower Up hosts, and you are listening to High Frequency Healing Show. The only difference between where you are to where you want to be is the actions you take here and now to heal your life. Today I'm so excited because we have Tatiana Berindei. We are going to talk about feminine meaning in terms of power. Tatiana has learned to listen to her inner guidance, and she guides clients with an uncanny ability to tap into what their higher selves ask for. She spent many years at the feet of elders and teachers from different traditions around the world, using that wisdom to follow her mission in this world. She loves to work with women, especially with mothers, to help them to reclaim their feminine power, embrace their sexuality in a profound and healthy way, and become more present in their bodies so that they can model to their children what embodiment truly looks like. And I am one of those women. These women lead sex, love, and superpowers, giving the voice of love through topics ranging from sex to relationships to self-love. Join me to welcome Tatiana Berindei. Hey, Tatiana.
Hi.
I am so excited you are here, and I want to start asking you, what's your healing superpower?
Yeah, this is a good question. And I think, like all of us, there are many that I carry. I think one of my real gifts is to be able to cut right through to the root and to sort of see the core of truth in a situation. So it's like, cutting through all the bullshit and getting to what's real and getting down to the root of an issue or, wherever something begins. I think that's my healing superpower.
Yes, and I just want everybody that's listening to know that I had this blessing to work with Tatiana for a while, and it's exactly her superpower. I was impressed. I've been in this journey of knowing myself and getting in contact with my sexuality, with my desire, my passions, and I have a great communication with my husband. But when I start working with Tatiana about this kind of lack of desire to be with my husband, and not because of lack of love, these women right there, immediately after I talked for a while, she said, oh, now we're going to be focusing on this. And that's one of the aspects that I was so excited when I made the decision to invite Tatiana, because I know that as women, we have, and also men, we have this need to get in contact to ourselves from a different level and perspective. But before we continue talking about this, I want to ask this question to Tatiana, because it's very important to know more about her and how does she get into all of this world. Could you please take us back to your early years and name one memorable life lesson that is useful for you today?
Yeah, absolutely. So the one that came up when I was sitting with this question was, I wasn't a young child, but I was, like in middle school and, middle school, early high school. And, it's this hormonal time of life. And there's all of these, what seemed like at the time, really huge, important, dramatic issues that are occurring. And there were, I was sort of in and out of all of these unrequited love situations and just having, sort of a normal teenage hormonal experience. And over the course of time, there were a lot of what felt to me like really like life or death conversations that I needed to have with some of my friends. And there were all of these fears that would come up, and I would rehearse, I would go in, I would rehearse like all of the different possible outcomes of what would happen in one of these conversations. And of course, it was never anything that I rehearsed. It was always something completely different. But I would have this experience in my body, and it was this like butterflies in my stomach, feeling like I was going to throw up and sort of implode all at the same time when I would think about addressing one of these issues with one of my friends, or confronting somebody, or telling somebody that I was madly in love with them, or whatever it was. There would be this like horrible butterflies in the stomach. I'm going to die if I do this thing that would happen in my body. But because I cared about my relationships, because I cared about my friendships, I would have these conversations anyway. And after this happened, maybe 3 times, I started to realize, because not only did nothing that I rehearsed actually occur in the conversation, but every single time I brought forward whatever issue it was with the person that I needed to talk to, it was resolved in a way that was like beyond better than what I could have imagined. I didn't lose connection with the person, because that's always the fear, right? I'm gonna lose connection. They're gonna hate me. If I share my truth, I'm gonna destroy the relationship. These are the common fears that we have when it comes to having difficult conversations with people that we care about. Mm-hmm. And none of that happened ever. And so what I got to do in that experience, and I got to do very young, was I got to understand that feeling in the pit of my stomach of like, I'm going to die, was actually a sign that I needed to, yes, go ahead and do this thing that I was so terrified of doing. And so that's been true of, conversations, but it's also been true, it's carried over to other arenas of life. When there's a fear, when there's a really intense fear that I'm feeling viscerally, that normally would make a person, or I would choose to say like, hell no, I won't go. I'm not going to do that thing. I rewrote what that feeling meant in my body. And so I got to tell myself, actually, this means yes. This horrible, uncomfortable feeling means that this is exactly what I need to do. And that's been such a hugely valuable lesson in my life, and something that I use with my clients as well.
And it's related to the question I asked you before, because that is exactly your superpower. See the core of the truth. So you knew you had to go through that. Mm-hmm. I would like to go to break, but not before asking you, where can people go to find out more about your work, Tatiana?
Sure. They can go to the superpowerexperts.com website, which is just superpowerexperts.com. Or they can go to TatianaBerindei.com, TatianaBerindei.com, and that will take them right to my page on the Superpower Experts site. They can also search iTunes for Sex, Love, and Superpowers podcast show.
Perfect. We've been talking with Tatiana Berindei about feminine meaning in terms of power. When we come back from this short break, we are going to talk more about her healing superpowers. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Are you here to change the world? Do you talk about things like vibration, frequency, awakening, and consciousness? Are you pretty sure you have superpowers? The Superpower Net is unlike normal coaching programs and conscious communities. We provide training, intuitive guidance, peer-to-peer learning, intensive one-on-one coaching, and a high vibrational network of people just like you. When you join the net, you get 24/7 access to a collaborative group of people who support you as you master your personal power and unlock your superpowers. If you're ready to use your superpowers to change the world, then join the Superpower Net today. Visit superpowerexperts.com/thenet to learn more.
We're back. You are listening to High Frequency Healing. Today, we are talking with Tatiana about feminine meaning in terms of power. And before the break, Tatiana was sharing with us this important moment that I do believe is related to her superpower, see the core of truth, and in that way, guiding people to start this healing process. And our topic today, Tatiana, is feminine meaning in terms of power. What is feminine meaning in terms of power for you, Tatiana?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and the first thing that comes to mind is, we're sort of conditioned as women in this culture and society today that one of really the only ways that we can have power is to be sexy, right? Mm-hmm. That if you're sexy, then you're a powerful woman. And I think there is something to being in touch with your sexuality and owning it and claiming it that does create a feeling of confidence. That is a wonderful thing. But there's also there's so many powers, and one of the first ones that comes to mind is our power and our ability to create life. And I work a lot with mothers, and I've studied as a doula and as a midwife. I was working as a doula for several years before I started on this path. And in terms of feminine power, like there is nothing more powerful than a birthing woman, a woman in labor giving birth to life. And I love, you're a native Spanish speaker. I love the Spanish word for giving birth, to dar de luz, to give the light, right? I think that's like the most amazing, beautiful thing. And that is the power that we carry as women. And whether we're actually giving birth to humans or we're giving birth to creative projects or ideas, I think that this is like this seat of our womb. This is like the most powerful place. And I think it's probably a conversation for another time, but is in part why all of these, generations and years of oppression occurred, because there was the men don't have that ability in their bodies. And so they had to enforce power in a different way, but we have the power to create without force. And I think that it's completely unparalleled.
I am here just breathing because I was taking notes. I say, oh my God, yes. Power is being sexy. That's what we have been thinking. That's what we have in our information. That doesn't mean is the right way of taking that power. But then you keep on talking more about it creates confidence. And one of the things I do believe women, we need to start creating inside us is our confidence, not because of how sexy we are in terms of beauty, but how sexy we are in terms of life. There is nothing more powerful, and you said it, than that moment of giving birth, dar a luz in Spanish. And what if we as women, we start just taking that action every day, every action we do in our lives, that every moment is just charged with this power of I'm giving birth to my own life. And when we talk about all of this, Tatiana, there are some aspects that I would like to clarify with you, because when we were working together, I realized that even I am a woman, I had to embrace my feminine side. On the other side, my husband had to take a different kind of role, like a more active role. So we needed to embrace our roles as women and men in bed. What would be some of those actions, feminine actions, masculine actions, in terms of energy that we need to be more aware? Because we are not talking a lot or enough about these topics nowadays. And I think this conversation is just being uncovered lately. And I would like to know about your perspective.
Sure. And I just want to clarify that when we talk about, masculine and feminine energetics, every single person, whatever gender they are, has both of these energies inside of them. And I really love to think of that ancient yin yang symbol when we talk about these kinds of energetics, because there is a polarity, and that polarity is sacred, and it's important to acknowledge and honor that balance. So, we have the polarity in us in magnetic fields. We have the polarity in us in this masculine, feminine, energetic. And so I just really want to acknowledge that I'm not, when I talk about these issues, I'm not talking about gender, because there are so many people who sort of don't feel like they fall into the binary. And so I just want to lay that out there to begin with. But so when I think of, these energetics, the masculine in from an energetic standpoint tends to be the more aggressive, forward moving, linear, like a straight line or an arrow energy, right? And the feminine tends to be the more yielding, allowing, soft, round. You think of a circle, we're thinking shapes, energetic, kind of like I was, with birth, for example. I love to use metaphors all the time. So, so when we think of, what happens when a baby grows inside of a woman, she's not actively doing anything to make that baby grow. The baby is growing. And so there's an allowing that's occurring. And so when I think of the feminine energetic, I think very much more of that allowing energy. There's a gentleness, there's a just allowing nature to take its course process. Whereas the masculine is more like, I'm going to plant the seed. I'm going to actively do something. So when we talk about those energetics, that's kind of a way that, and both are needed, right? Because if the masculine wasn't actively planting the seed, the baby wouldn't be naturally growing inside of the mother. So both are absolutely essential when we talk about the creation process, when we talk about living a whole and complete existence.
Yes, and that was exactly my experience that I want to share briefly about my work with Tatiana. I am very feminine, and as Tatiana said, it's nothing related to the gender at all. And when I was talking to my husband about all of this process and the reasons why I was kind of lazy about having these kind of encounters that I really loved and enjoyed, I realized that I had a problem receiving pleasure. And my husband was always so worried about making sure that he would wait for me. So we were talking different language. He wanted to give, but he didn't know how to give. And I just want to give, and I didn't want to receive.
And the part of why he didn't know how to give was because you didn't know how to receive. Because how can we give, giving, we can't have a giving without a receiving.
And that was my mirror. And it was so beautiful to be able to see, he is showing me exactly what I need to work in myself. So that was a beautiful discovery, and our relationship is now way better. It was excellent. Now it's superb. But talking about this, Tatiana, the power of giving and receiving is also related to these energies. Feminine receives, masculine gives. And sometimes we are not being aware of these two energies in the process of manifesting. And I think that's also part of the feminine meaning in terms of power. We are creators of life. What is the relation between aligning those energies and create our lives under our own terms, Tatiana?
Well, I think there's I think that, a lot of people talk about sort of the divine feminine resurgence that we're in. And I think part of that, yes, it's like women coming into more positions of power, claiming their sexuality, honoring birth as a rite of passage, and all of that. But I think on an energetic level, all of us have the opportunity to step into this quote unquote divine feminine resurgence from an energetic standpoint by allowing more. Right there, we're so in a culture of doing and like forcing things into being. And so from a creation standpoint, if we can sit back and not, and there's a balance, right? Because it's not like I'm just going to sit back and meditate and expect everything to occur in my life. That's not what that is. But it's this like really subtle internal orientation towards relaxing and allowing inside of one's own vibrational experience.
I want you to repeat the last part. Allowing
inside of one's own vibrational experience. So there's where everything is made up of vibration in the entire universe. Everything is vibrating, and there are different vibrational frequencies. And there's a law that says that which is likened to itself will be drawn. And so if we are vibrating at a certain frequency, we are going to be met with that frequency in all areas of our lives. And what I have found is that when we can attune to whatever frequency it is that we are calling to ourselves, that's what we're going to get. And it's easier said than done. It's a tricky dance, and it's a lifelong study. And I am by no means claiming to be a master of this yet. I'm still in my own study of this process. But I have been studying it enough now that like I see how it works. I can't always make it work exactly how I want it to, but I do understand and see how it works.
Yes, and I think that's the beauty of this, because when you are able to allowing inside, that vibration is when you really start your healing process. For me, has been huge to realize that healing process was happening just because I could sit, breathe, and get in myself, in every cell of my body, the information I needed to see, the information I needed to realize that I need to uncover so I could take action. And we are so used to take action without even thinking or feeling or allowing that information inside us.
Yes. And I think that's a really huge key. Sorry, I cut you off. You were going to...
No, go ahead.
Well, I think that we have come so far away from a natural order of things. I was talking to one of my clients about this the other day, because we were talking about numbers and finances, and she really didn't want to look at numbers. She was afraid of them. And I said, look, everything in the universe is made up of mathematical equations. There's a divine order and a divine intelligence in the way everything is put together in the universe. And there is, so it's not, first of all, not something to be afraid of, but also I think it's something that we have in our like human egoic way, we're trying to force something that isn't always in alignment with these natural principles and with the natural order of things. And when we can relax a little bit more, and access that and move from that place, I mean, it's like totally magical what can occur. It's totally magical.
Yes.
What is always occurring. I mean, if you think about the way, just to go back to the birth metaphor, the way that two cells come together, create one cell, which then creates a human. That's like, pardon my French, but that's fucking amazing. Like,
exactly. Yes.
And that's happening all the time around us. Everywhere.
Yes. And let me tell you, I am at the point where you are. Like, I'm not by any means expert about manifestation, but what I am sure, and I'm every day working on being able to identify what I did, what I thought, how I felt it, how did I interpret what's going on inside me, and put in actions that they are coherent with what I'm feeling, is what is helping me to create what I have right now. I have been creating amazing opportunities. This podcast is one of them. And just being able to understand is because I really start this healing process. This is really high frequency healing because it's going inside. Is I would say the real way to heal, because we are connecting to our own nature.
Yeah, and I would also say, just from knowing you and working with you in your journey, that the work that we did with your sexuality had a lot to do actually with your being able to come into this place of having your own podcast show.
Oh, absolutely.
I think there's a relationship there. We're talking about creative energy, to be able to tap into one's, especially as a woman, one's sexual creative power, because it's all occurring in that same center, to have that freely moving, to then be able and willing and feel free enough to then go and create in other areas of our life. I think there is a relationship there, which is why the work is so powerful.
Yes, and I love this, because when you were talking, I got this click in myself, inside me. I even got goosebumps because I've been asking to create more money. I am asking to create a more a constant flow of money. And it's exactly what it is. I've been creating all of these opportunities. It's like the universe saying, you are creating the opportunities, now be open to create out of those opportunities. And that's something that I realized in this healing process. You ask for something, and the universe, God, your higher self, whatever name you want to put to it, gives you the tools for you to be able to create it. So be careful what you're asking for, and be so aware of your healing process so you can really get the best magical result out of that. Tatiana, before we go, share with us 2 steps or tips for anyone to start this healing process, healing these energies inside.
Well, I think, for me, the most foundational and important tool that we have for any of this work is the breath. And it's always what I come back to with all of my clients, whether we're working on relationships or sex or money or business. Breath is so foundational. And if we can make relationship with our breath, this work becomes so much easier, because it's always available to us. And at any moment in time, at any moment throughout the day, I can stop and I can tune into my breath, and I can use my breath as a tool to ground myself into my body, into the present moment, and then move from there. So if I get too far ahead of myself, if I'm spinning off in some crazy direction, I have my breath, and it's always there. As long as I'm alive, my breath is there as a tool for me to lean into and as a resource. And that's true for all of us.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I would like to add something, because this exactly what you just shared was something that you asked me when we were working together. And I think doing this is exactly allowing that magical, that process, the healing process, the liberating process, the whatever process you want to live inside you takes place, because it's when you're breathing that you kind of quiet your mind. And it's the opportunity to let that feminine energy to take power, take control for a while, and let you sink in those thoughts, feelings, emotions that you need to embrace and listen and pay attention to.
Yeah. And in terms of sex, most people are not breathing when they're about to have an orgasm. And that is like such a profound tool in that arena. Talk about life-changing. If there's anyone listening to this, just go do a little experiment next time, whether you're with yourself or with a partner. See what happens if you just consciously breathe your way through the entire experience, especially when you're about to have an orgasm. Just see what happens. Try it and then get back to me and let me know what it was like, because guaranteed it's going to rock your world. And it's so easy. Well, it's so simple. It's not always easy, because there's a lot of stuff that can come up when we start to breathe, if we haven't been breathing our whole lives, or if we've been holding our breath. A lot of women, especially, we've been taught to hold in our stomachs. And so we've lost access to this whole second half of our torso, at where the breath is supposed to be coming and inhabiting our bellies. And we've lost access to a really deep seat of wisdom in that process. So breath is such a powerful tool.
Oh yeah. And as I always said, don't believe anything, just go and verify it. As Tatiana said, do it.
Yeah.
I never thought there was this huge power in the breathing action, as power as I could experience it during my sexual relationship with my husband. It has been amazing for him and for me. And it's also, I compare this breathing action with a shovel. It lets you just go deeper inside, deeper in your thoughts, deeper in your emotions, deeper in your ideas and your creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then you asked me for 2 tips.
Yes, exactly. We have one. What's the second?
So that's one. And the second one would be actually what I was talking about earlier of making friends with your fear and really, really reorienting yourself to those quote unquote scary signals that your body may send you when you're about to do something that would really bring a new level of growth and expansion to your life experience. And really change your orientation towards what those signals are. Make friends with your fear. That would be the second one.
In my own experience and the experience of most of my clients too, when you have the courage, when you take your power back and you're able to see your own fears to their eyes and talk to your fear and ask, what do you want from me? What's the purpose of this? Whoa, just magic would happen after that conversation. And if you just do this with the breathing, let me tell you, my friends, we have the power in our hands. That is just unbelievable how much power we have inside that will be showing out when we can work on these 2 tips that Tatiana just shared with us. Mm-hmm. Tatiana, let's remind our listeners where they can go find out more about you.
Yep. They can go to TatianaBerindei.com or superpowerexperts.com. They can look for Sex, Love, and Superpowers in the Superpower Up podcast on iTunes.
Thank you. Muchas gracias, Tati, for sharing your healing superpower with us, for sharing who you are, and for sharing your work in this world that nowadays I think is the most powerful moment to be aware of those 2 energies and how do they interact inside us as a way to show our feminine power.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
And thank you all of you for joining us. I am AngelaMaría. Conscious creation, change actions, shift energy to live heaven down here on earth. I'll see you next time. Ciao.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower quiz today.